Today is the 24th of May, 2011. We are at the New York State Military Museum and Veterans Research Center in Saratoga Springs. Sir, for the record, and my name is Wayne Clarke. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and your date and place of birth, please?
Everett Kerwood. I was born in Jonesville, New York. My birth date is November 18th, 1923. I'm now 87 years old.
All right. Now, did you attend school there?
Yes, I attended grade school, then I moved to Burnt Hills, Balsam Lake, and graduated from the high school there in 1942.
1942. At that point, did you go into the military or did you go to work? Or
I went to work at GE
okay.
in Schenectady.
And what did you do?
Oh, I was a messenger there.
All right. And how long were you there before you went into the military?
Not long. And then Pearl Harbor happened, and I was drafted into the military.
Okay. What was your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, I was...
Did you know where Pearl Harbor was?
Yes.
And
I knew where it was, but I was very, well, excited, or whatever you call it, to hear about it, what happened.
Well, when that, let's see, that happened in December 7th, 1941, and you didn't go in till 18 January 1943, so you worked another 2 years before you got drafted.
Yes.
Did you continue on as a messenger at
Yes, at GE.
How did your life change once we went to war, before you actually went into the military? Did you experience any kind of rationing or shortages of anything?
No, not that I can remember.
All right. So you were drafted into the Army.
Yes.
Where did you go for your basic training?
I went down at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then I was shipped to Texas.
Now, did you do your basic at Fort Dix?
Yes. No,
Oh, you
down in
went
Texas.
to Texas, okay.
At Camp Bowie, in
Camp
Brownwood,
Bowie.
Texas.
Was it an infantry basic training?
No, not that I can remember.
All right. You were in a field artillery battery.
Yes.
Now, your basic training, was that really your first time away from home?
Yes. We did all kinds of training there.
Did you...
all kinds of guns and firing all the guns and everything.
Did you fire the World War I Springfield, or did you have the M1 Garands?
Well, we had the M1 Garand, and I think we fired Springfield also, and we fired rifles and all kinds of guns.
Were there anybody else in your basic training unit that you knew from back home at all? Or were they all strangers to you?
They were all strangers. I can't remember anyone
All right.
from back home.
Once you completed your basic training, did you go on to an advanced school after that?
Well, I wanted to go in the Air Force. So they let me, transferred me to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to an Air Cadet training course.
Oh.
But I was too short to be a pilot, and my rating wasn't high enough to be a gunner, so they shipped me back to my own unit, and I went overseas with my field artillery battalion.
That was the same unit you had done some training with?
Yes, that was the same unit that I was trained with.
And where did you leave from? Was it New York, or?
I believe I believe the ship shipped out of New York.
New York?
Over to Scotland.
Was it a single ship, or did you go by convoy?
No, a single ship. and they issued a truck, a weapons carrier truck, and I drove that in Scotland, and it was on the, and everybody was driving on the wrong side.
Oh.
And that was some experience.
Yeah.
Driving around there on the wrong side.
Now, when did you go overseas? Do you recall approximately?
Well, about 2 years after. 2 years after.
See, you went in January of '43.
Yeah.
Were you involved in the Battle of the Bulge at all?
Well, at the end.
Okay, so you got over in 44?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about that experience?
Well, I'd never been on a ship and never been on the ocean. And I had problems.
Were you seasick?
Well, I didn't feel very good. Probably from the seasickness. And when we got over there, they got us all together, and then they arranged to ship us across the channel. D-80. I'm glad I only crossed the channel on D-80 and not, and not on the main.
Okay, so you went. You actually missed out on the Bulge.
No, not on the Bulge. That was at the end. The
Yeah.
Bulge was at the end.
Okay.
But we went over, and then we all got together over there, and they started shipping us where we needed. We weren't in a special army, but wherever they needed our guns, we had the big howitzers, 155 howitzer short toms.
Okay.
And each section, I think there was four batteries, I think. And I was in the headquarters battery, and I drove the red truck I drove was a radio truck, and I had a big radio behind my seat, and all the radio operators operated the radios, and they had a light plane that flew over, and they would radio down, and then my radio would contact the guns, and the guns, they would aim the guns where it was needed. They could all see where it fired from the plane. And so I drove that truck all over France and wherever was needed. Whatever army we were needed, we were shipped to.
And that was your primary job to drive the truck?
Yes, the radio truck, so they could add.
And what were the driving conditions like? Was there a lot of off-road driving, or was it mostly on dirt roads?
Regular roads, but sometimes at night. And they only had these little teeny lights on the front. You couldn't use any headlights.
Oh, the blackout lights.
And you had to make sure you went where you're supposed to went and didn't get lost and go back the way you came, so you didn't get lost and get mixed up with the enemy. And
what did you do for rations?
Well, they shipped us sea rations. And we had a truck, the kitchen truck, that provided meals for us.
So did you travel with the whole unit?
Yes, with all the guns, the whole battery.
And what about your personal equipment, your clothing, boots, etc.? Were they adequate for the weather conditions?
Yes, it was all packed in a duffel bag, everything. And they put they had big left fender on my truck, big fenders on the weapons carrier, and they put a bracket around it. And I got two shelter halves and put it together, so I had my own tent. And I would roll that up with a pillow I found, and put straps around it, and threw it on my left fender.
Oh.
In this rack, and I could always see it. And at nighttime, I get that out and put up my tent and lay my bed bag, sleeping bag, in the tent, and that's the way I slept.
Now, how often did you get showers and fresh, clean clothes?
Well, I don't know how often, but once in a while.
Yeah.
We'd come to a place where we could take showers and change.
Any direct contact with the Germans?
No.
What about artillery? Did they lob artillery rounds in on top of you at all?
I never had any problem there.
All right.
I'm glad I wasn't injured in it or in any way.
What about your unit overall? Did they sustain many casualties?
No.
No?
No casualties. Because we were back. See, the guns were so big that we were standing quite a ways back from the front.
And whereabouts, what was your route of travel? I know you landed in France, D-Day plus 80.
Yes.
And what route of travel did you take from there?
Well, I had a map, but I can't remember what routes we took.
So
we just headed west toward Germany.
So you...
or east, I guess that'd be east.
All right. So you spent most of your time in France until you got to Germany? Did
Yes.
you go anyplace else in between?
No.
All right.
Not that I can remember. Belgium, we were in Belgium.
How long were you in Belgium?
I don't know. Whenever they needed us.
Okay.
And once in a while, the officers had to go back to a meeting, and they give me a weapons carrier, not a weapons carrier. It had seats on. It was like a big truck with seats on it. And we go back to the headquarters in Belgium, and they'd put me up in a, private quarters, and the big generals that I drove there would be in their officers' quarters for their meetings.
Now, what rank were you?
I was a PFC, first class. That was the highest rank I maintained.
And what kind of weapon did you carry?
Oh, I just carried a carbine. They had a mount on my truck on my left, and the carbine always sat in the mount, and I never had to use it.
All right.
And behind my seat there was a big post, about that big, and I had a machine gun, 50 caliber machine gun, laid in the truck that I could put on that post if I ever needed to use it.
Yeah.
Heidelberg was one place I remember we stopped, and toward the end of the war over there, when they come to the Battle of the Bulge, all the Germans and our groups all got together near the battle where they called the Battle of the Bulge. And one night I was on duty, the plane came over, and I got that machine gun mounted and put it on the mount.
Yeah.
And the aircraft started shooting the plane, so I got up there on the 50 caliber machine gun and I started shooting. And about every third or fourth round was a
tracer.
Yeah, tracer. You could see where it was hitting. Now I don't know who hit the plane, but the plane went down over on the mountain. So we got that plane out of the air. The Battle of the Bulge.
Now, what were your conditions like at the Bulge? It was pretty cold. Was your clothing and equipment adequate?
Well, I had heavy coats. All army coats.
And I don't imagine your truck had heat in it, did it?
No, because it was wide open. I mean, canvas. I think it was canvas top.
So once the Bulge was over,
then they shipped us back.
Okay.
After the Bulge, we were shipped back, and then I was put me on a boat and shipped me back to New York, where I was discharged.
Okay. Were you in Europe when the war ended?
I believe it did.
All right.
After the Battle of the Bulge, I think the war ended.
Well, actually, the war in Europe ended in, I believe it was May of '45. Were you still over there in May? Let's see. Roosevelt died in April of 45.
Yeah.
Were you over there when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
I can't remember.
All right. Do you,
Must be I came back. I got out before the war ended, I think.
well, according to your papers, you were discharged in December of 45, so the war was,
Yes.
even the war with Japan was over at that point.
Yes,
When the war had ended in Europe, do you recall, was there a lot of celebration?
yes.
And were there any rumors going around that you might end up going to the Pacific or Japan?
No,
No?
no rumors.
Okay.
They shipped us all back on the ship back to New York City. New Year's Eve, I was discharged. Instead of staying in New York City, I caught the bus and came back home.
All right.
I didn't even stay down there for New Year's Eve. I remember that.
Now, when the war with Japan ended, there must have been a lot of celebration because you were still in the military then.
Yes, I don't remember that.
All right. Now, you were discharged, as you mentioned, New Year's Eve, and you were discharged from whereabouts?
From Camp Fort Dix,
Fort
New
Dix.
Jersey, where I entered.
And you headed home.
Yes.
And what was your homecoming like?
Oh, it was good. My parents were glad to see me, and I was
Mhm.
happy to be home.
How long had it been since your parents had seen you?
Well,
Before you went
no.
overseas, did you have any leave time at all, or did you go?
no.
Oh, I see.
One time I had to leave, and they sent me down to the Riviera.
Okay, so you had an R&R
Yes.
overseas. What was the Riviera like?
Oh, it was beautiful there.
Was it?
We had up in the big motel with the meals and everything on the beach and everything.
Wow.
It was really, really nice there.
Uh-huh. Now, once you got back home, did you take advantage of, there was what they called the 5220 Club, where you could sign up for unemployment, or did you go right back to work?
Well, I was going to take a course in air conditioning and refrigeration, and I went over to Hudson Valley
Mm-hmm.
to take a course, but for a while, and they paid me
Oh, so you were
while I was taking the course.
taking advantage of the GI Bill at that time?
Yes, yes.
And did you graduate from that course?
I don't believe I did. I can't remember.
Okay. You might have dropped out of it?
Yes. A job came up
I see.
with International Harvester Parts Depot in the Nantes.
Oh,
Shipping.
really?
Shipping, and I went there.
Yeah, my dad used to work there too.
Yes.
Now, how long did you stay with International Harvester?
Well, until they moved out. They moved out to another place.
Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah, down to Baltimore, Maryland. I didn't want to go with them, so I got a job with MTI, Mechanical Technology Incorporated.
Okay. So just going back, you worked from shortly after the war. You stayed with International Harvester till I think they moved out of Menands like in the like the late 70s, I think.
Well, I think I left there like in the middle 60s
Middle 60s.
and
Okay.
moved to MTI.
And what kind of work did you do for MTA?
Well, I started there in the shipping and mailroom department,
Mm-hmm.
taking care of shipping that came in and shipping to go out and the mail, picking up and delivering the mail for all the offices. Then afterwards I got a chance to go in the printing department where I operated an offset printer and Xerox machines and reproduction of drawings that the draftsmen
Mm-hmm.
made up. Reproduction,
Did you retire from them?
yes,
In what year did you retire?
1965. No, wait a minute.
No,
1988.
88.
1988. I was 65 years old, and I said, "That's it.
Yep.
I'm getting out."
I don't blame you. Now,
But when I first got out, I had a job as a mechanic for 5 years. Then I met my wife and got married and moved to Latham.
now, did you join any veterans organizations at all?
No, I haven't joined any. They've been sending me all kind of literature. They want me to join them.
The VFW or the
Yes.
Legion?
Yes.
Did you stay in contact with anybody you were in the service with?
No, I didn't. We had, one time we had a reunion, and I went there and seen all of them.
Oh, when was that?
Well, I can't remember what year it was. After I was discharged.
Okay. Was it after you retired?
No, before I was retired.
I see. And whereabouts was the reunion?
I think it was down in New York City.
Oh, okay. Now, just going back a little bit, when you were overseas, did you ever get to see any USO shows at all? See any celebrities?
No, I don't remember any.
No? How do you think your time in the service changed or affected your life?
Well, it gave me lots of exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Had all that training, all that training and everything. All about guns and how to take care of them and how to treat them and be careful of them.
Now, have you suffered any health effects? I know some of the veterans we've interviewed that were at the Battle of the Bulge had problems with frostbite and frozen feet that bothered them in later years. Have you experienced anything like that? No?
Thank the Lord I never had any problems that way. I always wore heavy clothes when it was cold.
All right. Is there anything else we may have missed you'd like to touch on about your experiences?
Not that I can recall.
Any funny experiences or situations or?
No.
Okay. And you've got some photographs here. Now this one here that I'm going to focus on first, that's in the frame. This is World War II honoree, Everett H. Kerwood. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, this is on the computer. If you dial in the History Channel on a computer, it says a branch, U.S. Army, hometown, Latham, New York. Activity during World War II, surge in Central Europe, Northern France, Rhineland, the Battle of the Bulge, field artillery. And then at our town of Colony, they put all these names and everything on a board.
I see.
And they set up the board at all the meetings. And here's a picture that I had taken when I was.
You were quite a handsome guy.
Thank you.
And do you recall when and where that picture was taken? Was it during basic training or afterwards?
Yeah, I think it was when I was shipped to the Air Force. They shipped me home, I think, on leave, and that's when the picture was taken.
Very nice. Well, if there isn't anything else you'd like to add, we'll conclude the interview. And thank you so much for the interview, and thank you for your service, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.